What's going on, everyone? Tristan here with Metroplex Bass Addicts to give you the last tournament breakdown of our 2021 tournament season. Right there you go.
Okay. What? Why? I think I like it.
All right, last tournament breakdown of the 2021 tournament season. This one is going to be over the first ever Collegiate Bass Trail of Texas tournament on Bob Sandlin Reservoir in East Texas. We had never been to Bob Sandlin before, as is the case with most of the lakes that we fish in college tournaments. And so we didn't know what to expect. We have some friends that live over there that, kind of told us what was going on, or like what the lake is like, but the water was really low. I think it was 3 or 4 feet low, which doesn't sound that low, but on that lake proved to be really low. Most of the good cover on that lake, shoreline cover, is in the first 2 feet of water at normal level. So it really left not that much cover, at least on the mid section and lower end of the lake. We never ran way up into the north end or the west end or anything like that, but on the midsection and down by the dam, there wasn't much shallow cover in the water, with the lake being 3 to 4 feet low. So practice was rough for us, really rough actually. We only had 1 day of practice. The Collegiate Bass Trail of Texas, you only get 1 day of official practice, and it's the Friday right before the tournament. The tournaments are always on Saturdays. And so we went up there and we spent all day practicing. The wind was absolutely howling. I think it was like 35 or 40 miles per hour. Luckily, Sandlin is a small lake, so it wasn't terrible. Any other lake, we probably would have died. We wouldn't have even been on the water, honestly. But it was rough. And so for the first 2 to 3 hours of practice, Ian and I spent up shallow, fishing docks, fishing seawalls, fishing riprap, and then trying to find some brush or grass to flip. None of it worked. No matter what we did, we could not find a shallow bite on that lake in the mid to lower section of the lake. And so we were about mid-lake, about midday, and we decided that we were going to run down and check the dam of Monticello Reservoir. It's got a bunch of riprap on it and some deep water. We had already checked the dam of Cypress Springs Lake and didn't catch anything on it, and so we figured we'd just go check this one. And on the way down there, we hit some really big waves, and the nameplate on Ian's Ultrex came off and actually flew backwards and smacked him right here in the head so hard that he had to go. We took him to the emergency room, quote unquote, in that area, and he got some skin glue and stuff on it. And we missed about 2.5 or 3 hours of practice getting lunch and getting him fixed. It hit him hard. We were probably going about 50 or 55 straight into the wind, and it came back, and the very corner of that metal nameplate hit him and split him wide open. He bled everywhere. It was just a disaster. And at first I thought he was really injured, just the way that his head rocked back, but he ended up being fine. He didn't have concussion or anything somehow. But it was just an adventure for sure. And I actually have a video of the aftermath of that. Unfortunately, we didn't get it on video. We weren't recording, but I did take a video afterwards of his head and what happened. So I'll roll that now. All right, so obviously there's supposed to be a plastic covering right there on the shoulder. We're out on Sandlin and the wind is crazy, and we hit a giant wave, and I guess it broke loose, and sorry, it flew back and nailed Ian in the face.
Alright, let's see if we can.
Oh my god.
Is it bad?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Stitches?
Yeah, maybe. All right, so as y'all saw, that was pretty gnarly. But like I said, we probably missed about 2.5 to 3 hours of practice. Went and took him to the urgent care in the area to get fixed, and then got some lunch, and then went back out on the lake because we had a few hours left of our official practice. And the one thing that we hadn't tried on the lake was fishing deeper, fishing offshore, fishing on points, and fishing the main lake bridges. And Ian and I have always been pretty good bridge fishermen. We've done really well in a lot of tournaments fishing bridges. So we pulled up on the main lake bridge that crosses the southeast side of the lake, and the wind was blowing into it pretty good, and we just started cranking it, and pretty much immediately started catching fish. And Next thing we knew, we came around the point of the bridge. We worked all the way down the side, caught a few. We came around the point of the bridge, and Ian had a good 4.5, 5 pounder on. And by that point, we had a few other good bites, and so we were like, well, now we've got at least something to run with. And so we left the lake, and we just decided to bank all of our practice, or all of our tournament, off of the bridges, and hoping that there was enough fish on the bridges to at least do somewhat well in the tournament. So fast forward to tournament morning, we get one of the later boat draws, and we're just thinking, you know, it's a bridge. It's one of the most obvious pieces of bass cover there is in a lake. I'm sure with how late our boat number draw is that we're gonna have to find something else. There will be too many people on the bridge. Well, we get to the bridge and there's literally no one there, which I still don't understand to this day, because I'm gonna tell you what, they actually were loaded on those bridges pretty good. And so unfortunately, you know, we didn't film this tournament. I think we didn't have a camera at the time because our camera had been broken and we hadn't got a new one from GoPro yet. So we didn't film, we didn't have a camera, but on the bridge that morning, we had a bunch of bites. We had enough bites to fill a limit and a good one. And unfortunately, you know, all the shorts, all the little ones I didn't keep, we caught every single one, but every time we had a good bite, it came off. I was cranking, I had a good probably 3+ pounder come off my crankbait at the boat, and then Ian had probably 2 3+ pounders, and that maybe even that same 4 to 5. It was in the exact same spot, just on a different bait. He was throwing a Texas rig up on the bridge, and he had that, what we think is the same 4 to 5 that he missed in practice the day before on that Texas rig, and it got off, and then he missed 2 or 3 more good 3+ pounders. And so, you know, we're sitting there just kind of upset because we should have probably about 12 to 13 pounds in the boat, and we have absolutely nothing but shorts to show for it. We have no weight in the boat. And so we fish the bridge probably until 11 a.m. just trying to pull whatever we can off of it, and eventually we don't catch any keepers off of it. We just had those few bites that we missed all of them, and we eventually stopped catching shorts too. And so we figured that we've exhausted the bridge and we need to find something else. So we run to a few stretches of main lake docks, kind of at the mouth of some creeks that the fish might be starting to move into for the fall shad migration. And we catch a few shorts on docks, flipping the docks with a Texas rig, pretty standard stuff. Catch a few shorts, but no keepers. And so finally we say, you know what, we're not fishing shallow, we're not fishing docks. Let's try scanning some of these main lake points at the mouth of some of these creeks offshore. So we start scanning some points. We scan one, we don't really like what we see. We scan another, we don't like what we see. And then finally, the third point that we come up to, we scan over the top of it. There's a real sharp break on it, and there's a rock pile on top, and there's a school of something. We can't tell exactly what it is, but it looks like bass to us on the graph, just the way that they're positioned. So we idle up, and we get set up. We thought we were set up right on the school, and so we start casting to where we think they are. Well, about 10 minutes goes by, and we don't have a bite. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, I don't think we're set up on the school right. And so I tell Ian, you know, let's idle back around, find them again, and then make sure we set up on them right. So we do, we idle back around, we find the school on the graph again, and we set up on them right this time, and we start casting into the school. And I think it was Ian's second or third cast. He was throwing a Strike King 3XD in, it was a weird color. It was like a green back chartreuse. It had a green back, and then it was a chartreuse body, and it had a little bit of orange on the belly. He throws that out. I think second or third cast, he has another good like 3 to 4 pounder and gets it all the way to the boat. And I wish we had had this on camera because it was kind of cool, even though it sucked for us. But I'm at the back of the boat and he's on the front of the boat fighting it. And as I go to net it, the fish jumps, but it's in the corner of where the boat, like the transom and the motor is, and it jumps. And when it jumps towards the motor. And I swing the net, not even thinking. I swing the net to get underneath the fish, but the rim of the net bounces off the motor. The fish falls in between the net and the motor and just pulls off the hook and gets away. And, you know, obviously at this point, we're pretty frustrated because we've had probably a solid 14 to 15 pound bag now, maybe even bigger, come off. And we haven't landed. We've had them all hooked and we haven't landed a single one of them. And so we're pretty mad about it, but you know, like they always say fishing is a mental game, so we decided to stay positive, try to stay mentally tough and confident. And after a few more casts with the crankbait, Ian catches a white bass, but no more bass. And so we put the crankbaits down. I start dragging the Carolina rig, and Ian starts dragging a 10-inch worm. And finally, Ian catches a few fish on the 10-inch worm, but they're not keepers either. And so after about 30 minutes on that school, we decide they're probably not there anymore, or maybe they are, but they're kind of used to the baits. We'll leave them alone for a little bit and come back. So we go to the next bridge up the lake, crank it for a few minutes, and finally Ian catches our first two keepers on a 10-inch worm on a Texas rig, 3/8 ounce tungsten Texas rig weight, a 5/0 EWG worm hook, and a 10-inch Zoom Old Monster in plum apple. He catches two keepers and off of a bridge pillar. Here's the point of the bridge, and it was the first set of pillars off the point, and probably about, I think, 15 feet of water. He catches two fish off of that, and we give it another 45 minutes or so and leave it and go back to the school that we had jumped off the good one. And Ian catches a few more fish there, but none of them keep. And so we end the day with the two fish. I think we had, I don't remember exactly what we had. I think we had like 4 pounds. We placed 43rd out of 64 teams. So not a very good tournament, 43rd place out of 64 teams is not that good. It's like the 75th percentile. But I think it took 22 pounds to win, but to get a check to be inside the top 10, it only took, I think, 13 or 14 pounds. And so, Ian and I, it was the second time last tournament season in 2021 where we had the bites to be inside the top 10 or 15 and do really well, and they just got off. The same thing happened at the TTO championship at Texoma, and then now it happened here at Sandlin. So, it's just one of those days, it happens. Fish get off. It's part of the sport. You're never going to have, you're not always going to be on them. You're not always going to catch all the ones you hook. So you just got to move on and learn from it. But man, that one was really tough because we knew with the bites we had, I missed a 3+ pounder, and then Ian missed a 4 to 5+ pounder and several 2 to 3+ pound bass. With the bites we had on that we actually physically saw, we knew we would have been in the top 10 and gotten a check. So really sucked to start off a new trail having the bites to do really well and missing them all, and then doing pretty bad. But like I said, it was a fun time. We did have a fun time on Sandlin. We caught a lot of fish. We probably caught 40 or 50 fish each day. Caught lots of fish, learned a lot, and got to experience a new lake. So that's always fun. I always love going to new places, as does Ian. But yeah, kind of a disappointing turnout despite, especially with what we had on. But still going to break it down for y'all, even though we didn't have the best turnout. Like I said, we did have the bites to be inside the top 10 or 15, so we were around the right fish. Basically, all we were doing was fishing the bridges, the points on the bridge, the pillars on the bridge, and down the sides. The calm sides weren't that good, but any side of the bridge that you could find with wind on it, you could catch them on that windy side, and then on the points and the pillars, catching them on a few key baits. I caught all my fish on this bait right here. It's the Berkeley Dredger 8.5, so this bait dives about 8.5 to 9 feet deep, and it's in like a classic kind of sexy shad or American shad pattern. It's kind of interesting. It's got like some chartreuse on the belly. It's a really cool shad color. It's got a really nice rattle in it, and so we figured most of the bass that we were catching were in that like 7 to 15 foot zone. So I picked up this bait because it was hitting that perfect zone. I could get it down to about 10 or 11 feet on the right line, and with the rattle it was calling them up. The water was pretty clear. You could see down about 3 feet, and so it wasn't really, you didn't have to be exactly as deep as you could be. As long as you were within 2 to 3 feet of depth of where you thought the bass were, they were biting it. So that's what I caught all my fish on, and that's what I missed the one keeper bite I had on in the tournament. Like I said, it was probably a good 3 to 4 pounder. And I don't know why I missed them, to be honest. I used the same cranking setup I always use, and all, the line, the rod, the reel, and the hooks, everything was the same. I always change out my stock hooks on all my crankbaits, all my hard baits, regardless of brand. Strike King, Berkeley, Megabass, doesn't matter. Whatever brand of hard baits I'm using, I change the stock hooks out to these Mustad KVD Elite Triple Grip Trebles. They are the best treble hooks on the market, I promise you, for hard bait fishing. There's not a better treble hook than these KVD treble hooks. So I change all my stock hooks on every bait that I have, every hard bait I have to these, and most of the time I land, most of the bass I hook. So I don't know what happened. Every short fish that I hooked, I caught. Literally the one fish I lost was, of course, the good one that I had on. So funny how that works, but that's what I caught mine on. It's the only bait I caught them on. I did catch a few shorts on a swim bait on just a little 1/4 ounce head, and I caught a few on a wacky rig as well, but all the big bites I had in practice and all the big bites I had in the tournament and most of the fish I caught were on that crankbait. And my setup for that, pretty simple. It's a little bit bigger bait. For my square bills, I use a 7-foot rod, but for those medium diving crankbaits, I up it to this 7'4". So this is the Denali Rods N3 series crankbait rod. It's the 7'4" medium heavy moderate action, or the N3743 CB is the model number. So yeah, 7'4" medium heavy moderate crankbait stick. And then I use the Ardent C-Force 6.3-to-1 gear ratio reel. This is their cranking reel. It's the only reel I use on all my crankbait setups, except for my big crankbait setups. I use the Ardent Apex Magnum for those, like 8 and 10XDs. But every other crankbait from like 5XD down, I throw on an Ardent C-Force cranking bait cast reel in 6.3-to-1. And then the line, I use all the same line for crankbait fishing, 12-pound Seaguar 100% fluorocarbon. The Invisex 100% fluorocarbon. Sometimes if I'm trying to get the bait a little deeper and I'm not around a lot of cover, I'll use 10-pound line. If I'm around a lot of grass or I'm trying to keep that bait up above grass or trees, I'll up it to 14 or 17-pound line. But for the most part, all my cranking is done on 12-pound Seaguar Invisex 100% fluorocarbon, 6.3-to-1 gear ratio bait cast Ardent C-Force reel, and a 7'4" medium heavy moderate Denali N3 cranking stick. So that's the setup. Right now I have a Spro rock crawler on there. I haven't changed the hooks on this one yet. I just got it. I'm gonna run these stock hooks in practice, and then before my next tournament, I'll change out to the KVD hooks. But that's the setup that I use for these medium diving crankbaits that weigh, between 3/8 and 3/4 ounces. So that was the setup I was using. Ian's is basically the exact same for his crankbaits, and then for his 10-inch worm setup, he was throwing a 7'4" medium heavy worm and jig rod with a 7.5-to-1 gear ratio reel and 20-pound Seaguar Invisex 100% fluorocarbon. Pretty simple stuff. 3/8 ounce weight, 5/0 WG, and that 10-inch worm. So it's the same setup I use, just different brands of rods and reels. But that's pretty much it. Those were really the two baits that we caught them on in practice and in the tournament. And I wish we had some footage to show you guys from this tournament, but it's all right. Can't get them all on video. We didn't have a camera at the time. Our previous camera had broken, and we didn't get a new one in from GoPro in time. So we appreciate y'all watching. We appreciate y'all, listening and wanting to learn from us. It really does mean a lot that we get to teach people how to become better bass fishermen and kind of talk fishing.